Come on up, Evan. Cool. Take it away, Evan.
All right.
Thank you. Cheers, John.
Thanks for having me. Cool. Well, I might start in similar vein to Chan and maybe get a show of hands of how many people here are up customers. Put your hand up. Okay, about 60% maybe. How many of you keep your hands up if up is your main bank? Okay. And what about if it's your only bank? You have nothing else. 0. We're not there yet, huh? I want to talk to you a little bit tonight about how we work. And I'm hoping maybe it'll be inspiring a little bit, or maybe it'll give you some ideas around how to bring some of these practices into your own company. But first I want to just talk a little bit about what Up is. Obviously, there's quite a few of you in the room who probably are quite familiar with us. If you're not, we're a bank. We're only on app, actually. We don't have any internet banking or web banking, so to speak, which has kind of been like a really nice constraint. We've only been around for around about 5 years, so we're pretty new. And at the moment, I think we're just coming on to about 800,000 customers. So it's been a pretty decent growth story. I think when I joined, we were about 80,000, so we're doing all right. But when we launched, it wasn't probably like a great period for banks in general. Maybe that was a good thing. The Royal Commission into banking happened around about 2017. I think there was a report in about 2018. Basically said people hate banks. Banks are shit. We don't trust them. Not everyone, obviously, but that was kind of the general sentiment was we don't really like banks much. They kind of do some dodgy things. We don't really trust them, but we've got to put our money somewhere. So the goal, I guess, with Up, and this was prior to me starting as well, was that I guess the goal of of our founders was really to make a bank that people would love, which seemed like a really crazy idea because when most people don't like banks, it's kind of a big, hairy goal to actually make people not just like us but love us. And we've kind of got there. Like we're still on a journey, but probably a really great example of some of this success is our referrals. If we look at how many people actually refer others to Up, so people referring you to join, it's about 80%, which is pretty crazy, really. The kind of industry standard is about sort of 2 to 5%. That's like the benchmark. So to get to about 80% is pretty phenomenal. So we've definitely sort of tapped into something there. We've definitely created something that people like. Maybe they love, maybe some people love. We definitely get feedback of all persuasions. And I think part of that success that we've had so far is, yes, down to amazing engineering. Sorry, this isn't a design ops talk. I know I may have tricked you a little bit there, but I thought rather than talking about design systems and things like that today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the relationship that we have between product and brand. Because brand's sometimes not really a thing that really gets a lot of attention, perhaps in product, at least in digital products these days. But I think it's a really important part of the success we've had. We actually all our teams are named after music genres. So just it's probably totally irrelevant, but just for context, our brand team we refer to as Soul. So hence the name of this talk is With Soul, because product and brand or Soul, we've really created a good relationship, which we think is part of that sort of special thing. And I think a good example of how that has come to life, like there's many examples that I could probably point to, but one that I've worked on, it's been around for a little while now, but was this feature of Save Up 1000. This is I think a really good sort of tangible example of like how we work well together. These are the two teams. Well, actually, no, this is the team that worked on this project. There's engineers there as well. Like we can't do it without engineers. They're absolutely amazing. They're crucial to the collaboration that we do. But we also have these brand designers or creatives as well that we work with who make it possible. So to give you a little bit of like context as to what Save Up 1000 is, it's basically a game. This is literally on the back of the welcome packs that we send out to customers. If you receive one in the mail, you'll flip it over, you'll see that your card's on the other side. This was like a little bit of fun that the creative team wanted to do with that welcome pack and sort of incentivize people to start saving money. It's simplest form, there's 52 weeks in a year. Every week you take a little bit of money, you put it away, and by the end of that year you can cross off all of those little boxes there, and you've saved yourself $1,000. And so we thought, oh yeah, we can do that in the app, right? Well, job done. We'll throw all the boxes in there. We'll, put all the options. We'll cross them off. We'll have a little transfer over the top of our savings account, bang, done. All good, all good. But that's not sort of how we treat anything. And I think if you've kind of can see by that welcome pack, we don't sort of just jump in and look for like the simplest, most component-friendly solution to solving any problem. And I think part of that also sort of stems back to our goal as a business. This hasn't really been maybe articulated when we started this project, but it's sort of become more to the forefront as we've gone on, and that's this idea of having an accessible path towards financial well-being. We think that's really important. A lot of banks talk about financial well-being. It's hard to even kind of say because it gets thrown around so much. It's like, oh yeah, of course, and another bank saying they're going to do financial well-being. So we've tried to be a little bit different there. We think it's really important. Like a lot of our customers are young, a lot of our customers don't have a lot of money. And so I guess the crucial part and the part that I wanted to highlight here was it's an accessible path. It's not just telling people about or educating people about financial well-being, but it's finding a way to actually get them to engage properly with their money and lead towards these sort of positive outcomes in the way they have, the relationship they have with that money. So that's sort of like the broader goal. And, in order to solve that, we need to be working on meaningful problems. So we can't just do everything that, say, our customers ask of us. There's lots of problems that get presented. There's lots of ideas that we get. A lot of them are great. A lot of them really sort of weave their way into what we do, but we want to make sure we're solving the right thing. And there was a really nice kind of, I guess you would say, relationship between that broad company goal and the idea of this game. If customers we found this research from ANZ when they did a financial wellbeing survey that anyone with less than $1,000 has generally got a pretty dramatically low wellbeing score. So they're not doing great with money, and I guess you could say that's sort of self-fulfilling. If you don't have a lot of money, you're probably not going to be doing well financially. If you can't save $1,000, you're probably in a situation where that is difficult. So you can take a bit from that, but I think the thing that was interesting there was that $1,000 is something as sort of a benchmark to getting to a better financial wellbeing state. This was like an actual figure that you could aim for. So we thought there was something there and worth exploring. But we wanted to sort of take it a little bit further as well. So we talk about that accessible path. We think, well, it's not just about getting someone to get $1,000, help them save for $1,000. It's actually more about how we help them get there as well. Can we create a habit of saving, and can that habit then sort of translate through to everything they do? So can it be a life habit, not just can you get to the goal, but can we create something that people will want to do? That was sort of the real challenge for us. So we started to sort of frame it up, and one thing that we do a lot in these brand design, workshops, you'd say, it's more just sitting around a table and spitballing a lot of the time, but we sharing solutions, talking about them. One thing we often like to start with is looking for sort of a good metaphor and analogy to wrap things up. I mean, we already had a great one here with the pack that we'd brought out, but we wanted to make sure that we had a really good way of framing this idea. And I think it's important with every sort of product that we work on. 2Up, if you're familiar with our joint account product, 2Up, it's a really good example of how we've done that. 2Up's I guess what's interesting about 2Up is that a joint account traditionally had been something that most people had been quite sort of apprehensive about using. It's kind of like this amalgamation of, Anton put it really well, where he's our head of product, put it really well, where it's kind of this amalgamation of finances where you sort of create this rather than two individuals coming together and sort of working out money together, working out money situation together, it kind of turns into this thing where all the money is sort of pulled in and you don't get this separation between either party. And the thing with that is that then makes it a big commitment, and that big commitment then stops people from wanting to do it. And we could see over time that less and less young people were interested in the joint account product. So this reframing of 2Up was a really great way where it's like two-player banking. It's less about joining all your finances together and more about, you can set something up really easily. You can shut it down really quickly as well. So just to sort of hit home that we always sort of try to have that metaphor and analogy. And so when we started with this one, we wanted to sort of lean on these sort of cues where we could look for something that had a nice bit of anticipation or excitement around it. Bingo and like sort of these scratchies that you'd buy and, see if you've won a couple of dollars. Like we kind of really liked that. There was something like not just the visual side of this, which is really interesting. And there's, if you notice, we do we love a bit of retro. So like it had a really good sort of look and feel to it and was very key, very sort of similar to our brand. But it also had that right kind of, expression that we wanted when approaching this. And another sort of thing that sort of really went into a little bit of maybe an uncomfortable stage for us was looking for other things that were quite exciting and almost pushed that boundary a little bit too far, where we're like, maybe we can get into, almost into that gambling thing we can lean on a little bit more. I know we're a bank and it makes no fucking sense for a bank to be doing this, but, those neon lights are really cool, like the kind of the feeling that creates when you look at that is exciting. And I think if we want people to give a shit about money and like actually try and do this thing, then we need to try and see if we can translate this sort of imagery or feeling into what we do. So the next step really is that we start to play a lot as well. So there's a lot of iteration that goes on. Like we have these weekly sessions, which I guess act as like these stopping points for us all to sit around and share these ideas and get feedback. And we have a lot of the product and brand people in the room. But we've also got the core team kind of leading this experience as well. And there's a lot of iteration that goes into that. So we play with a lot of ideas, and I'll kind of go through just a few of kind of the mechanisms, I guess, that of this one and how we sort of played around with a lot of options to get there. The really obvious one was that like you can't fit 52 saves on a screen. Like it's a phone. Like it's just too much. So we knew this was never going to work. It's kind of an obvious one. I'm almost strawmanning the idea here, but like we couldn't just replicate this print product. It wasn't going to work, and nor was it the right way to treat this experience. So we looked at other ways to do this. Maybe we just reduce the options. Like maybe we look at a really simple sort of pattern that people are familiar with. Maybe we have that dial. You see that on iOS when you're choosing a date or whatever. Maybe that's a nice way. We just present a couple of options on screen. Pick an amount, set an amount, away you go. But it was a bit boring. Like surely we could do better than that. So we sort of kept playing with this bingo analogy. We're like, well, maybe it's about getting the rows. Maybe it's not about like just choosing an amount, but it's like there's got to be sort of a goal towards what you're doing as well. So maybe if you get that entire row, that's a stage where you feel happy and you've completed something, and you feel that sense of progression towards this $1,000. Like maybe that's the way to go. We toyed with that. But then I think when we really sort of hit this like aha moment or this milestone was when we realised something pretty basic about games is that like most of them have levels. Like it seems so obvious. But this kind of was a bit of a really good moment for us, because we're like, these sort of break up really well. There's 7 levels. There's sort of 8 saves within each level. We've got 3 breaks. That we can front load those if we want to. It gives customers a chance to choose an amount. And it kind of gives these nice set milestones towards that $1,000 goal as well. There's a way to see progression and to keep going. So we thought, okay, we're onto something. Then from there we were like, well, what are the cool moments? Like, what are those obvious key moments that we want to celebrate with customers? Because if we want to sort of imbue that excitement into the product, then where are the times that we want to do that? And there were 3 that really stood out. One was that moment that you save every week. Like that had to be something that was like worth doing, something that felt somewhat exciting, something that you wanted to come back to. there was the end of the level, which was an obvious one. You know, you've achieved something, you've got a little bit further towards that $1,000. And then, of course, you know, that ending as well is a really obvious one. If you've hit that $1,000, that's something worth celebrating. So there were three sort of key moments there that we really wanted to push. And the other thing was we had to think about like what dollar amounts would actually fit within each level as well, which maybe sounds a bit weird, but it's like if you just threw all the high amounts in there, then someone might be really disappointed before they've even started. They might get to week 3 and be like, it's another $40 that I've got to put away this week. I can't do it, and they drop out. But then if we kind of go to the other extreme and it's too easy and all of them are small amounts, and then suddenly you're in level 7 and you're like, shit, I've got $40 for the next month that I've got to put away to complete this challenge. That wasn't sort of going to work either. So we're like, well, maybe we'll put a bit of strategy behind it, and we'll set these amounts into different intervals, which, you know, again seems obvious, but it's something that we kind of had to work through. So we had these small amounts, these medium and these large amounts, and we figured, well, we knew most people get paid on like a sort of a fortnightly basis. Maybe one week they're a bit skimp, maybe the next one they've just got paid and they have enough to put away. So maybe there's a bit of strategy around when you actually play the card that you want to use, or the amount that you want to use. So quite a bit of work there. I hope that's made sense so far. I just wanted to sort of pause and say that when we're exploring here, we're not exploring in a very sort of waterfall manner, if that makes sense. Like, we're kind of moving between these three kind of levels of fidelity, I guess. Like, there's the idea, the conceptual idea. There's a lot of sort of Pete, who's our creative director's brain behind that, in sort of figuring out how we brand this, how we make it feel exciting, how that works. There's the game mechanics that we're sort of sorting out there, and then there's like that execution layer, which is like we're trying a whole bunch of different. Did you want to ask a question?
How do you test if ideas, even if ideas is viable? So do you go out and play this kind of game with people?
No. It's a great point. That probably would good segue actually into the third one there, which is play. And the way that we usually play is through test flight, and that means that we can build directly into the app. We can build branches and test that. We don't go out to customers though. We typically feel like we've got a good enough intuition of what feels right between the entire team, and we have a very big support team as well that we can work with. But generally, it's a pretty small sort of product and design and marketing team, a bunch of sort of people who are really invested in the project, who will be playing and iterating and finding bugs and giving feedback. So we're actually quite comfortable just like taking a bit of risk rather than going out and being like, do you like this? What would be better? You know, like, and there's value in doing things like that. But I think a lot of what we've done to date, which has worked, is just intuition guided. You know, we try things, we see if they work. If they fail, we can iterate on it. That's okay. Does that answer your question?
Any kind of the standard A/B testing industry does?
Yeah, we could do A/B testing. We've done a little bit of it, but we wouldn't do it here, at least not at the moment. And so sort of moving to that next step, we were really thinking about how this, we had the game mechanisms in place, but we were also sort of working through like what was the way to visually present this. Like, we'd talked about like this idea of the neon flashing lights and the sort of the Vegas scene, and we talked about like making something that felt more like the printed card that we had. We were toying with a whole bunch of different ideas, and we sort of came down to these two that were competing a bit. One was like this idea of climbing a mountain and gradual progression, and this was something that I was quite invested in because I felt like we'd done an amazing bunch of work in like visualizing particles, which, for context, if you see a save, it's on the next screen here, we have these little particles that represent money. And so I thought, maybe that's the way that we extend upon this visual metaphor, and we sort of wrap it up in this nice sort of climbing towards the top of the peak there, and we have these sort of neon thing that lights up at the end of every save. That would be something that would be really enticing. But then on the other side, and the brand team were really keen on this sort of idea, which was like, no, let's keep it tactile. Let's let's try and make it feel like you're almost peeling off every single save that you make. And that's ultimately where we ended. We decided that was the way to go. We'll go all in on that. And so I guess from there, that final step is like really looking at crafting those moments that I talked about. There's the saving every week and making customers want to do that. There's the level completion, and then there's the ending as well. But probably the most crucial moment, and if we think back to the idea of creating that habit, the moment where you make the weekly save to us felt like the most important one. So we really tried to make sure that we got that right before we shipped anything. So that's where we focused on sort of two areas. One was really making sure we got that feeling of tearing a card away when you make that save. And we played a lot with the haptics here. There was a moment where there were three of us, like Higgsy, who's in our brand team, myself, and Crafter, who's our engineer. We're all sitting there with the phone out. We were playing with it. We were playing with the different bumps, and we were trying to get the right feel for like what does that tear feel like in a digital form, which was really fun and interesting. It was like what's the right spacing? Does it as it gets closer to ripping off, are those haptics going to become like less pronounced but more but faster? And then like when that thing finally goes through, like does that have like a thud to it? That was the kind of detail that we were going to there, because we really wanted to craft this moment. We knew that was sort of a crucial piece to this. And then it was like, well, your thumb's kind of, it's getting in the way of this whole interaction as well. So the feeling's got to be there, but like the visual it's kind of hard to replicate because the thumb's just covered it. So we wanted to make sure that we still had a way to really make this visually pleasing as well and give the right sort of visual feedback. So that's where we had this sort of little counter at the top, which evoked more of that sort of neon light visual aesthetic, where it was like, as you're holding and ripping this piece off to create that save, you're also seeing this feedback of progress as you get towards the end, and then it sort of flashes. And I've got an example in a sec. I won't try and do all the hand motions. And then lastly, it was like a reason to come back every week was crucial there too. And so we solved this by creating this progressive building up of scenes. So every level had a scene, it had a theme. You'd start with the pig would be putting money in. By the end, the pig's living large on an island. Like, we wanted to make people come back and be like, well, what's happening next? Like, what's the next piece of this puzzle? So those sort of three things we thought were key, and obviously we can put typical app functionality behind it as well. We had notifications to prompt people. There was ways to sort of bring people back to the experience. We had some social aspects as well to try and encourage people to save along with their mates as well. So there were a whole bunch of other things that we sort of teased out, but for the product and brand sort of experience, these were the things that we really honed in on. And then we launched it, and we just did 3 levels. We had 7, but we're like, fuck it, we got 52 weeks before we have to do an ending. We've got how many weeks before anyone will reach level 4? It's all good, we'll figure it out. And we did, and there was a bug actually where like you could make 2 saves with 2 thumbs, and someone figured that out and then got to level 4, and we didn't have a graphic for it. We said that they went back to level 1. They're like, what the hell's happening here? And we also got to the ending, and someone realised that we hadn't calculated the amounts right, and we got to $998, not $1,000. So we made some mistakes along the way as well, and like the kind of mistakes we probably shouldn't make. But I think that also sort of talks to a lot of the philosophy that we have of like, we're okay to take risks. We're okay to be uncomfortable about something. We can launch, and if things go wrong, we can iterate, we can improve. We've got the muscle to do that. So, and then, we eventually got to the end there, and this doesn't look like it's playing. It might in a bit, maybe it won't. Anyway, there's a great animation there. Maybe I won't spoil it for you anyway if you do get to the end of the save up challenge. Maybe I've ruined it for some people, sorry. But then we went one step further as well here, and Sharma in our brand team was like wanted to make this like a really magical moment for people as well. So you also get this keychain when you complete the challenge, gets sent out to you. It has like a lovely pack included with it. You have your own unique member number on the back of it. And I think the great thing about that is it's like a forever achievement. It's like if you've hit $1,000, you've done something that you can be proud of, and it's something that you can, and there's a token that you have to remind you of that goal that you've reached. So Obviously that came later, but like it became a really sort of critical part, and customers responded really well to it.
Is that actual physical keychain? Sorry.
What's that?
Is that actual physical keychain?
Yeah, physical. Yeah. I don't have the keys that are on tonight, otherwise I would have brought it out. But yes, it's a physical keychain. We've sent out, about 13,000 of them now. So lots of keychains going out in the mail. And if you finish the Save Up 1000 challenge, you'll also get a keychain. So keychains for everyone. We've had about 166,000 people play so far, so quite a lot. I think that's about half of our active customers have played. We've got about 25,000 playing at the moment. You look at those numbers, they're not bad. That's probably sort of 10% of our active customers have completed, roughly. A little bit more are still playing. But we're okay with that. We've got ideas around how to make that larger, but I think it's also okay to think that there's plenty of people that might not actually get to the end of this challenge, but the fact that they're able to create this habit, even if they don't get all the way, they're able to sort of build that muscle. We think that's a really important thing to do. So, and we've had some great feedback. This is cherry picking, obviously, but we've had a few customers write in and express their gratitude for the challenge. This one was a great one. I thought it was worth highlighting, being able to do something that was super important that they would never have been able to do. And then, just more common ones like this where, they've had enough money to buy Chrissy presents, which is really cool as well. So sort of just to wrap it all up, this relationship, I think, between product and brand, there's kind of a few sort of key things I think that we do well. There's making sure we're solving the right thing or solving something that's meaningful. We get heaps of ideas thrown at us. We can't do all of them, and we have to sort of choose really carefully around what we want to do. And I think this one was a key example where it sort of really aligned with our vision. There was no sort of immediate monetary gain. There was no business metric driving this, but it was like if we can help customers get better with money, then that was ultimately the long-term win there. The metaphors or analogies that we use, like finding a way to make it sort of easy to understand and easy to sort of interact with and enjoy, and all the sort of visual richness that comes with that. And then the idea that we play a lot, so we're doing a lot of iterating, we're doing a lot of exploring, there's a lot of prototyping as well that goes into that to sort of fine-tune those ideas. And then there's like sort of just really really focusing in on those key moments as well. We can't make everything awesome, but like with any project, there's always sort of one or two like really core experiences that we think are worth spending the time to craft, and hopefully that comes through in a lot of the features that we work on. Yeah, and then there's a culture of people more than it is about process. We've been very hesitant a lot of the time to adopt process. We don't talk about double diamonds and things like that. We're pretty fluid in the way we work. We have two teams that have like really strong creatives and really strong product thinkers. We have an analyst in there who's amazing as well and is actually super creative too. So we have these two teams that work really well together, and then we have these smaller teams that branch off and sort of work on the individual features. And that's it really. That's our journey. I hope you found it maybe a little bit inspiring. Just to give, like, if it feels overwhelming or too much, I want to say that when I started, Sol was literally Pete, our head of design. He was being contracted by us. He was running his own design business. He's incredibly creative, but we had a little bit of his time each week, and just that little bit of time that we had with him was enough to sort of get this muscle going. It started with basic icons, and it moved from there into what happens when someone signs up? What's that moment? What does that feel like? And it's really evolved from there. So you don't have to start with much to make it work. And that's it. Dave here is hiring, so if you're interested and want to join Ferocia, we're looking for a mid-senior designer at the moment. So yeah, come join the team. Thank you.